Hello, you join us today at Carp Farm Fishery in Worcester, I believe. First video of the year, middle of winter, absolutely freezing, but hopefully we're going to catch a few fish. And I had a bite straight away, so I'm enjoying myself a little bit too much. There we go, nice Carp Farm common, lovely little fish. Let's see if there's any more out there. Now today I'd like to run you through a tactic that I think is pretty underused. A lot of the matches I fish, it's dominated by pole fishing, feeder fishing, bomb fishing, and I think a lot of people shy away from waggler fishing. I don't know what it is, whether they're sort of not confident in it or they just don't see it as a winning tactic, but a waggler fishing any time of year is something I'm mega confident in, and it's a tactic that, you know, beginners or experts should be sort of utilising really. So today I thought I'd run you through some really simple tactics. We're at Carp Farm Fishery today. It's full of some nice carp, or at least I think it is. I've been here once before, a year or two ago. Never fished it in winter, but hopefully we're going to catch some carp today on waggler tactics. So typically, you know, it's like a lot of fisheries. From what I remember, it's about 5-6 foot deep, but we're going to run through that and plumb up in a minute. So that's going to be perfect for a bit of waggler fishing. We're going to be fishing on the bottom, maybe up in the water. Obviously it's turned a little bit mild today, so there might be some fish off the bottom, but typically we're going to fish on the bottom with corn and a few other baits, but we'll run through that in a minute. First of all, I'm going to show you how to plumb up a waggler correctly. So today, like I said, I'm going to keep it really simple today. Normally I'd be fishing, say, sort of unloaded or insert peacock waggler. I prefer unloaded wagglers because they dive less than a castrator, but for a beginner, or you know, someone who does know what they're doing, a lot of great anglers all use sort of loaded wagglers. So I thought I'd run you through a setup that is going to be is going to get you going and fishing really quickly. You know, if I took a family member fishing, I'd always set them up one of these wagglers. You know, simple, loaded at the base, but really easy to set up. All it is, so I've got my sort of 12 foot waggler rod, sort of typical gear for a commercial fishery. I prefer a 12 foot rod instead of a 13 because it's less cumbersome. Obviously, it's a bit longer than 11, so you can mend your line a bit easier and sink it a little bit better. Really simple, got 4 pound float max on that. Brilliant reel line. Nice and durable. Obviously we're middle of winter, we're not going to be bagging loads of fish, but it's just enough for what we're going to use. Also we could probably get away with 3 pound, but 4 pound is going to do the job nice. So all I need to do, I've got my main line here, one of these Stops pellet waggler kits, and literally all I need to do, you've got these little loops here, just slide one of these onto the main line, thread it through, like so. Slide it on one at a time, just wet it, give it a little bit of lubricant. Oh, that one's caught on the other one there. What's happening? Not as easy as I, there we go. Slide it on. So we've got a stop there above the line. We've got our sort of quick change waggler link there, and we've got 2 more stops. And then on the end of that, I'm also going to attach a little quick change swivel, one with a rubber sleeve, because I think we're going to be probably fishing with corn today, but I'm going to have a couple of different hook lengths I'm going to change and swap in between. So I'm just going to tie that on. Nice simple knot, whatever you prefer. And then all we're going to do to plumb up to begin with is pick a nice decent sized waggler. So we're going to pick, say, a 4 gram. There's a 4 gram there. It's loaded at the base, but it's got these washers that we can adjust. So to plumb up to begin with, I'm going to take one of these washers off so that it's undershotted. Place that there, so don't use it. So it's going to be shotted to about there. That's what you want when you're plumbing up. You don't want it shotted there because you can't identify the depth correctly. So if we just undershot it by taking that off, nice and simple. Grab the quick change or Wagler adapter, just plonk it on there. And now I'm just going to test it in the margin, but I think that's going to be well undershotted behind me. There we go, sticking right out the water. But importantly, if I take an SSG shot and place it around that swivel that I've just tied on, or just above it on the line, like that, that will now sink the Wagler. So instead of using, there we go, instead of using a big plummet like you would on the pole, that little shot on the line is not going to sink into the silt. It's not going to make a big splash when it hits the water, and you should be able to plumb up nice and accurately. So if I turn around and show you how to plumb up, I'm guessing it's probably like 5 or 6 foot, so I'm going to move it up to maybe 5 foot to begin with, and I'm going to show you how to plumb up. So now I'm going to run you through the process of plumbing up. It's really easy to be fair, but it just takes a little bit of time sometimes to get it nice and accurate. So like we said, I've set it roughly about 5 foot. I've got my SSG on my swivel there. No hook to begin with, so we're just plumbing up for now. It's probably not even the float that we're going to use, but for now, just going to cast out to the general area that I'm looking to feed, just a comfortable distance. And the float's popped up straight away there, so I can see that I'm well over depth. So now it's just a case of sliding the Wagler down a little bit at a time until we can sort of see the shot register on the float or the float disappears. Just a bit of trial and error. Sometimes it can take sort of half an hour to sort of plumb up. Sometimes, you know, the pegs are sort of up and down a little bit, and it takes a little time to sort of try and figure out where you're going to fish and, you know, what depth it is on your rod. So that again, the float is well out the water, so it's obviously a bit shallower than I remember, and it might be that it's shallower in the middle of the lake. So just sliding it down, shortening the rig again, trial and error. Just take your time, take a few casts. And at the minute we're just plumbing up in front of us. I'm going to have a few casts left and right. That's actually sunk the float. I'm just going to wait a little bit, see if it pops up. Sometimes it just pops up. But now that's sunk the float. So I'm just going to come back up again. Just about 1.5 inches, just see what happens. Nice comfortable distance. So that one's popped back up again, but that was to the left, that one. So I'll have another cast in front of me, see if it gets deeper in front of me. Just slightly deeper, you just see it register there, but we're still well over depth. So I'm going to slide the float back down again. Another inch. Ooh. Can be a little bit awkward to cast because they can sort of pendulum a little bit, but if you just do a nice steady lob, you'll find that you can get it out there. So that one's sunk, but I did cast a little bit further that time. Just going to try cast a little bit shorter, see if it deviates a little bit. It does take a bit of time to plumb up. Not every lake's totally flat, so you're there. Let's pop back up again. So I'm going to have another sort of cast long just to see if it deepens off, just to confirm. See, that's sunk. So what I'm sort of gathering a little bit of picture to what my peg's doing, and I think the further you go out, it sort of steadily deepens off from what I can gather so far. So at the minute, if we were fishing short, nice comfortable distance, that would be the right depth. Just gonna have another cast a bit longer. Horse behind me, he's not happy. So it just popped up then and went back down. We've got a bit of a breeze today, so it is making it a little bit awkward. Obviously when you're waggler fishing, it's nice to not have any breeze whatsoever, but today we've got a bit of a breeze off our shoulder, which isn't too bad. As long as it's off your back, it makes things easy. So we've just deepened it off again, because I think we're going to be fishing a decent distance into the lake. We are in winter. There we go, just popped up. So you do find that the fish can sort of shoal up tight in the middle of the lake quite often, or the warmest part. So I think that's the area we're going to fish. So all I tend to do now, you've got this little hook up on a rod, or you tend to anyway. So all I do is I place that shot there, reel up the slack, and then I'll mark it on the rod, or in this case, depth is actually that rod ring. So I'll count how many rod rings. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 rod rings, and that's the depth on my longer line. So if I come back shorter, I'm going to be sort of 2 inches short of that. But if I fish out longer, that's going to be the right depth, right on that rod ring. It's important as well when you mark your depth, is to flatten the float against the rod, because that's how you're going to be fishing. I tend to mark it with, you know, just a tiny blob of Tipex, something that's not going to damage the rod. And then we can go about setting our rig up. I think that was a 4-gram Wagler, so that was actually quite comfortable to cast in this wind. So I think I'm going to stick with that Wagler. I'm going to put that washer back on again that we took off earlier. If I can find it, there it is. Put that back on again, and I think that was nearly shotted about right with that washer on. Might be that we have to trim it down with a few number 8 stots just around that where the rubber stots are. Obviously we've got that swivel down the line, which is going to add a little bit to the capacity of it. So we look there, that's actually shotted probably about right. Take that SSG off. Obviously we know how deep it is on the rod, so now we've got to attach our hook length to this. Like I said today, I'm going to fish a couple of different hook baits, but I think probably going to try and catch on corn. Corn's a brilliant bait in winter. When the water's a bit clearer, it just stands out on the bottom and it sinks nice and slowly. So I've got a hook length here, it's 0.11 power line to begin with, and I've got an 18 GPM hook, eyed one, because we're going to quick stop it on a hair. I've also got a spade end hook if I want to mess around with maggots, or maybe even a punch bit of bread, nice and slow through the water. Sometimes a slow sinking hook bait can sort of pick out a few fish. I'm not going to probably feed to begin with, because I just want to search the peg and find out where the fish are to begin with. Obviously it's winter, they're not really going to be coming to lots of loose feed, so I'm just going to take it easy to begin with. So I'm going to start on the quick stop rig. I've got I think it's 2 foot, yeah, 2 foot hook length I'm going to start with, which is going to be about right for this swim, because what I want is that swivel to be about half depth, just to sort of help sink the line. I'm not going to have any shot apart from that down the line to begin with, so I'm just going to attach that onto our swivel. Really quick to do. Just peel back that rubber sleeve, slide it back on again, and that's that. Obviously we're miles over depth at the minute, so I'll put the hook on the hook up, reel up, and I'm going to count down to my 4th ring, because that's the depth of the swim. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it's here. Slide it down, and to begin with, because there is a bit of a wind, I'm just going to go about 1 inch over depth. Obviously it might be that we need to sort of lay a little bit of line, but for carp really I want to fish sort of as close to the exact depth as possible. The bites can be really finicky in winter, so by having lots of line on the bottom it's not really ideal. So with a bit of luck that might be our rig. It might be that we have to put a number 8 or so on, but no, just testing it close in, that's probably about right. So now we're probably ready to start fishing. Right, so one quick tip, I'm about to start fishing, ready to go. This reel line, it's probably been a while since I've used this particular reel. I've noticed when I cast out, it's actually sticking on the surface a little bit when I try and sink it. So what I do is I carry around with me a little bit of fairy liquid in there, washing up liquid. To be fair, it's better off in a spray bottle, but this is what I tend to do to sink the line and sort of break that surface tension. All I do is dab a little bit of this onto the spool, like so. Smear it in, have a few casts with that, and that just breaks the surface tension of the line and makes it easier to sink the line, and it stops the float being dragged around by the wind and keeps the float in place. So just a few casts with that, rod under the water, make it nice and wet, work the fairy liquid through, and you'll be amazed the difference that makes when you're trying to sink your line on windy days. So let's get fishing. Right, so let's start fishing. Obviously I mentioned earlier I'm going to be fishing corn to begin with. All I'm doing here, pick a nice grain. I've got my quick stop on my baiting needle, poke it through, grab the quick stop. I'm just hair rigging it there. Preferred hair rig if possible when carp are involved, as I just think you hit a lot more bites. So to begin with, that's all I'm going to do. Grain of corn, I've not fed anything, sink the line, and I'll run you through quickly the baits I'm using today. So obviously I've got my banoffee corn. Obviously flavours work really well in winter, so a bit of banoffee works really well. As I said earlier, it's nice and visual, sinks nice and slowly, should be sinking now. And if there's a carp there and it sort of drops past its nose, you quite often find you get bites just as it's settling. So like I said, I've got corn. I can maybe choose to feed a spot later on with a few grains of corn if I start catching a few fish. I tend to do that just short of my float if I can, because you often find feeding can actually be a kiss of death in winter sometimes. So like I said, I've got some corn, but I've got other hook bait options if I just want to cast around, try and find some fish. So I've got maggots. I could put sort of 2 or 3 maggots on a spade end hook, sort of a 16 or an 18 GPM. I've got a hook length for there ready on my side tray. All I need to do is clip it on. And I've also got some bread here. I've got my punch kit here with a few slices of bread. Like I said, I've got a spade end hook. I could try maybe a 6 or an 8mm punch piece of bread. And like the maggots, it's going to sink really slowly and sometimes that can fool a big wary carp on sort of a cold day. It's just a lot about trial and error really, just see what they want. Obviously on this particular lake the water's actually quite coloured, so it might be that, you know, pellets might be a better option, even though it's sort of cold and in winter, and pellets maybe not quite so effective. Just by feeding sort of 2 or 3 pellets at a time, sometimes that might be the way forward. So we'll stick with the corn to begin with, see if we catch some fish, and see how we go. Oh, so that was a little indication there straight away, to be fair. Quite a sharp dink, so I think it might have been a carp. I'll just check my hook there, sitting nice. So it might be that I'm fishing too far over depth if we start missing a few bites. Like I said earlier, we've got a bit of a breeze today, and it's really important to sink the line, so that way the float's not drifting out, you're not creating a bow in the line, you're sinking the line, getting it under that ripple, and it's going to stay in place without dragging the hook bait around. Obviously I'm setting my clutch as well, just in case we do hit into one. Obviously I've got a insert waggler today. Obviously wagglers come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. I've got some on my side tray. So, where's my float? I'll show you them in a minute. Just cast out again. Hook bait's still on. That's the beauty of your quick stop. Stays on there, doesn't come off. So now the process of casting out. Cast out, feather it when it hits the water so it all straightens out, rod tip under, and a nice flick, and I can see all my lines sunk. So back to the wagglers. They come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. The one I've got out there is an insert waggler, which is this one. It's nice and sensitive on the tip. Obviously we're in winter today, and quite often you get little dinks and that, so by fishing a finer top waggler, as long as you can see it, can amplify those little bites. In my other hand I've got another indication. It's a good sign. I should pay more attention really. But the other option would be, if we were struggling to see our float, would be a normal straight waggler. Obviously you can see in the sun that's really glowing quite nicely, that waggler. So if the ripple got up, we'd swap to one of those. So that time it took my hook bait. So it's just a case of getting my needle, putting a quick stop over the top, pick a nice grain. I'm sliding it through the blunt end and through the top, and that way it's going to stay on. My hook point's exposed, there's a carp there, it's a good sign. And hopefully we catch one of his friends. So I'm going to run you through casting again actually before I go out. One mistake a lot of people make is they wind the waggler right up to the rod, and that makes it really difficult to cast accurately. What you tend to want is sort of a 4-foot drop between your float and the rod tip, and then it's just a case of a nice gentle lob. When it gets close to hitting the water, I put my finger on the spool to stop it, and it all straightens out without any tangles. I think that's really important when you're waggler fishing. A lot of the time people cast out and it lands sort of without feathering, lands in a bit of a heap, and that's when you get your tangles. So it's really important. Nice 4-foot drop, nice steady lob, cast out, trap the line with my finger, rod tip under, a few turns, and then a nice little flick to sink the line. And I can see my float pop up, and then we're fishing. And that hook bait should be falling nice and slowly. Obviously all I've got at the minute is that swivel on the line and the hook bait, so it's all nice and slow, really natural. But if the wind did get up, I could maybe try and put some shot further down the line, say a couple of number 8s, just to sort of keep it steady. And now it's just a case of waiting for a bite. So we've had a couple of indications straight away. I think they were sort of at the far end of my swim. But what I could do is, if it's been there a little while, I can take a few turns on the reel, another little flick, and that resets my float, lets the hook bait drop down again, and it just tries a different spot. That way you're searching your swim, searching where the fish are, and see where your bites are coming. It just gives you a really good idea where the fish are if you're sort of casting around your peg, not fishing in one spot. Obviously we're in winter, so quite often you find that you maybe catch a fish straight away. Ooh, might have been an indication. Sometimes you catch a fish and it's really hard to get a bite, especially when you're, obviously we're on a lake all on our own today, and you might think the fishing's going to be easy, but in winters you tend to find you catch one and the fish sort of back away again and they don't come back. So it's really important just to sort of search around your peg. Obviously in a match you'd have people opposite you and they'd be pushing fish towards you, but when you're on your own, you sort of, once the fish have gone, they sort of gone in winter, because they're not really looking for feed especially, but they will take a hook bait if it's dangling in front of their nose. So in a minute we've got a red top float. The ripple at the minute, slightly awkward. It might be that we can get a marker pen and black it off, it might be easier to see, but I've got my glasses on, which makes it quite easy to see a red float, to be fair. The beauty of these floats, they've got interchangeable tips, so you could have like a black tip and then swap between, depending on what the ripple's doing. But at the minute I can see my float just nice. Just being nice and patient and waiting for a bite. So I've not had an indication in that area for a little while, so I'm going to do what I did before. A few turns on the reel, try a different spot. It's actually stayed under that time, so I'm going to strike that one. Took my hook bait again, might have been a fish. So by searching the peg and keeping busy, you're going to find out where the fish are, rather than sort of fishing in one spot. And I think that's the beauty with waggler fishing. If you were fishing a bomb, you'd sort of be limited to one spot really. You couldn't sort of keep casting out because that would scare the fish. With a waggler, there's hardly any disturbance out there. So here we go, we're into our first fish. You saw we missed a couple bites earlier. I've actually made a few changes. First one, I've actually blackened off my float tip because the wind's got up slightly, and I've stepped up to a 5 gram waggler. Just keep it nice and stable in this crosswind. And this fish in particular actually took it nearly straight away. So it shows me that it was sitting off the bottom and it's seen that hook bait. Oh, just woke up. It's seen that hook bait falling through the water, and that's when it's took it. So that was a fish that I wouldn't have caught on a bomb or feeder, because it was sat off the bottom and it's took it on the way down. So like I said, we're in winter, so I'm just going to take my time with it. It's a long fish. No rush. They don't go quite crazy like they do in summer, but this one's a common and it's sort of putting up a bit of a fight. Nice soft rod though. It takes up all the lunges. There we go. Lovely fish to start off the session. Nice common. Let's see if I can hold him up. There we go. Nice Court Farm common. Lovely little fish. Let's see if there's any more out there. Slip that one back. So that was on a grain of corn, so that gives me confidence to keep going with the same hook bait. So like I said, I'm not going to go mad with feed. I've not fed anything yet to begin with, but I think if I start catching a few, I might flick a few grains shorter, just gives me another option. Obviously I caught that fish out quite long, It just gives me another option to bring it back, and you sort of get 2 bites of the cherry if you like. And typically I've gone for a black float and the wind's just dropped, so I can't see a thing now. But luckily I've got the tip I was using just here, so I'm going to swap back to my orange tip. In fact, I actually coloured in half of that with a marker pen, so I'm just going to turn it upside down, push it back in again. Job done. I can't believe that, the wind's completely dropped. And a few minutes ago I couldn't see an orange float, and now it's perfect again. So just shows you need a few sort of colour options on your float tip to see it. That orange is sticking out like a beacon now, so that fish just took it just around about now, just as it was settling. So because I've had a fish like that, it makes me want to sort of cast nice and frequently to keep the hook bait dropping through. And in fact, now that I have had that fish, I think I'm going to flick a few grains well short of the float, and it just gives me an option for later on in the session. Not going to go mad. Just a few grains out there, sort of 6 metres short of the float. And you quite often find sort of later on in the session, this time of year, just as the temperature sort of rise up a little bit in the afternoon, the carp sort of have a little bit of a feed then. You sort of normally get a good spell in the morning, and then they sort of have a bit of a feed before it gets cold again in the evening. So it might be that short line comes really good. A little indication then. So it's important in winter to sort of strike at those little indications, because they can be your bites sometimes. It might have been a silverfish or something. You might notice as well, I'm not using a rod rest when I'm waggler fishing, because for me there's just no need for it. If you're putting your rod down when you're waggler fishing, you're missing bites really. It should just be an extension of your arm. You should have it in your hand all the time. If you want to feed, you know, you've got your left hand here. Rod is sort of across the knees. I don't need to hold it, but it's there if I do get a bite. I can fill my pouch up, keep my rod across my knee there. If we get a bite, I can strike straight away. It's not a problem. I don't need to put it down. I just think a rod rest is a waste of time when you're waggler fishing. It gets in the way, there's no need for it. And if the rod's already in your hand, you're going to hit bites a lot quicker. So that was good, we had a little indication there straight away. I've not had an indication for a little while, so what I'm going to do is a couple turns back, try a new spot, see if there's one closer in. Just about searching your peg all the time. Obviously it's not like a feeder and bomb when you're clipping up to a same spot. It's about searching your peg, and when you are feeding on a waggler, you're feeding quite a big area, so it wouldn't sort of make sense to clip up to one spot because you're not covering sort of where your feed's landing. And you tend to sort of get an idea of where you're getting bites, so then you can fish to that spot then. If you're sort of clipping up to the same spot all the time, you're sort of limiting yourself really with a waggler. But the wind's still dropped, so it's going to be a nice day today. The sun's trying to come out. Had a few bites, so I'm already happy, to be fair. On a nice cold day, it's just nice to be out doing one of my favourite methods. Right, because the wind's dropped, it's actually gone completely flat calm. I'm now going to shot my float down a little bit deeper and just put a number 10 around the base of it. Shouldn't use your teeth really, but I have. Just to dot it down a little bit. Obviously when the wind gets back up again I can take that shot off quite easily. At the minute it's flat calm, so I can afford to dot it right down. So cast out, it's really important to feather it when it goes in, so it's all falling down in a line, not in a heap, and that hook bait should be falling nice and slowly now. Hardly any shot down the line, and hopefully that grabs the attention of a fish. Probably even put another shot on that, but I know as soon as I do the wind will probably get up again, so it's probably alright as it is. I'll carry on feeding, I think, that little shorter line. I don't think it's going to do any harm, just sort of 3 or 4 grains every now and again. And now it's gone flat calm, I'm also looking at signs of fish. Obviously they're not going to be really active in winter, but they sometimes do give themselves away. Sort of little pinprick bubbles can come up. Maybe little swirls where there's fish up in the water. It's amazing actually, even in winter you can sort of see fish cruising around some days. Ooh, there we go. Sometimes you can see sort of pods of fish moving around really high up in the water. You've got to remember we got cold nights quite often, so a lot of that cold water is down on the bottom, and fish like this sort of, they want to be in the warmer water like us really. Well, not water, but so they search out the warmer areas. So if we get a mild day they're going to pop up in the water and take advantage of it really. This one feels like a smaller fish, might not be. Just taking my time with it. There we go. Lovely fish, that one. Another immaculate little common. Ooh, just woken up. There we go, lovely little fish. Awesome fish to catch in the middle of winter. It's nice to get a few pulls on a rod, or dips on the float rather. See if we can catch some more. So again, that was a grain of corn, so it's not really any point sort of changing really. Sort of such a good bait in winter. And I pick a nice medium grain, a quick stop through on my little hair rig there. You can quite often find when you hair rigging, you hook fish in the right place, so it's sort of on the mouth rather than back in the softer part of the throat, if you like, and that way you lose less fish and you seem to hit more bites doing that. On the flip side, if I was fishing for sort of species like skimmers, F1s and Carassios, I might fish say a 14 hook and just hook the actual grain of corn onto the hook. And sometimes you hit more bites like that on species like F1 skimmers, but for carp we're hair rigging today. Don't think there's actually any F1s in here, I think it's just mainly carp. And another one just topped to the right of my float, so I'm keeping my eye out. Just caught a fish, it might be that that fish is just spooked off from the commotion, but we'll keep searching the peg, keep pinging a few grains of corn on the shorter line, and yeah, the sun's just come out and we're having a nice day. There we go, that was a quick bite, really sharp, just nodding his head. So I actually started feeding a bit more bait that time, which is encouraging. Sun's out, fed a few grains nearer to my float and I started catching, well, just hooked one there, so feeling a bit spring-like, to be fair. So that's a good sign that I can sort of feed a bit more bait, if you like. Don't need to be so cautious. I can get away with feeding a bit of bait, and it might be they actually come to the feed. It's a lovely fishery, so it might be that we do catch a few fish today, but already we're on to our third or fourth fish, and on a cold day I'd be happy with that in a few minutes, really. So anything else is a bonus. This feels like a bit of a bigger fish, to be fair. I'm going to take my time with it. Just sort of nodding his head. Not really getting his head up at the minute. There's no need to rush. Just going to make the most of every fish. Got my clutch nice and loose. Not fishing mega heavy, like I said, I'm only fishing 011 power line. Really light, small 18 GPM hook. So I'm not going to mad and pull their heads off, but there we go. Nice fit common, that one. Nice chunky fish. So there we go. Sun's just trying to come out as well for it. Probably won't let me hold it in the sunlight, but give it a go. There we go. Just unhook it and put it back. Lovely little fish, that one. In fact, the grain of corn is actually still on there, so just shows how effective quick stopping is. Soft baits like corn. There we go. In fact, I'm going to see if I can catch another fish on it. So I've actually just upped the feed a little bit here. The sun's coming out, I just got that feeling the fish are going to sort of respond to it, if you like. Notice that when I have fed, I've had bites straight away, so it's encouraging. Typically I've just put another shot on and the wind's getting up, but I can just about make it out. Might have to take the number 10 off again. Just going to take that shot off again, I think. Ripple's making it a little bit awkward to see. So the beauty with stots is you can take them off the line quite easy. Just tease it through the slit again and I took it off. Quick as that. Check my hook bait, all good. So nice little lob like that. Feather it before it hits the water. A few turns and then a flick of the rod. Sinks the line. I'm going to flick a few grains into the peg again. And then what I can do is I can reel back into the feed and just search my peg. So another few turns back, try a different spot. All that time the hook bait's moving around, dropping through the water. Just giving more chance of catching a fish that might be off the bottom and following the feed down. Here we go, we're into another fish. Feeling a bit spring-like now and I'm enjoying myself. I think we'll call this fish last fish of the day. I had a brilliant session. I think I'm going to carry on for a bit though. Catch a few more of these carp, but thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Preston YouTube channel for a bit more fishing content. And while I catch a couple more of these beautiful little carp, thank you for watching.